Baruch Dayan Hamet, we praise the Judge of Truth. On the way over, bringing Tina's remains from the casket to the grave, we recited Psalm 121. Esai enai el haharim, me'ayin yavo Ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai, oseh shamayim va'aretz. Al yitein lamot raglecha, al yanum shomrecha. Hine lo yanum velo yishan shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomrecha, Adonai tzilcha ad yad yaminecha. Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka v'yarech balayla. Adonai yishmarcha mikol ra yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmar tzecha v'wecha me'ata v'ad olam. I lift up mine eyes unto the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help cometh from the Lord, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. The Lord is your guardian. He is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will guard you from all harm. He will guard your soul. You're going and you're coming, now and forever. Death has taken our beloved Tina Starman, your beloved. Our friends grieve in their darkened world. In their silence there is lamentation. In their tears there is loneliness. Lost in their sorrow, may they find the presence of loving friends. Hear them, O God, and be with them. For Tina's love that united many people in life, and which death cannot sever. For her companionship that was shared along life's path, and which continues through the tenderness of memory. For the gifts of her heart and mind that brought joy and happiness, and is now a precious remembrance. For all of these and more, we give our thanks to God. It is a time of grief, and we listen once again to the voice of our sacred scriptures. It brings us the ever-new message of God's nearness. It tells us of our kinship with the Creator, in light as in darkness, in joy as in sorrow, in life as in death. Together let us recite the 23rd Psalm in English. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. It's a privilege to call forward Jared to speak words of eulogy of his dear mother.
Thank you all for coming. As many of you know, my mom was a thoughtful, kind, and caring person. The way she best expressed that was by taking care of others, and I'd like to share some specific memories. A big way that Mom took care of others centered around food and cooking, probably because she used to be a home ec teacher. Of course, there were her nightly home-cooked meals, except Saturdays, which was dinner and a movie night. I have fond memories of Mom making holiday meals with gel molds and her fancy coffee pot for dessert. More recently, she was always armed with suggestions for recipes on the phone and was always concerned with what I was making. In fact, she did successfully transfer several of her signature recipes to me and my family, which I share, like her spaghetti and meatloaf and flank steak, and I'll always think of her when I make those. Building on her home economics background, Mom was always concerned that I was properly dressed. As a kid in winter, that meant sweaters, snow pants, ski mask, even if it was just waiting for the bus. As I grew older, she continued to be concerned. When I started my first professional job, she made sure I had a closet full of dress shirts and pants from her. To this day, most of my work shirts are still from her. I know she made clothes for Nikki's girls when they were younger too. And as I grew even older, her care extended to my family. When my kids were born, she sent numerous care packages and easily provided most of their clothes when they were first born. And when Allie and I went to Emma and Julia's bat mitzvah a few years ago, she, off on her own, went and got Elliot his bat mitzvah outfit. And she brought it to Austin and brought the sewing kit to make adjustments on the spot. My mom also showed she cared by helping me with my education and well-being. Her and my dad moved out to Chesterland, partially for the good schools. She took me to speech therapy when I was young. In first grade, I distinctly remember coming home crying because I didn't turn in a report. I didn't know how to do it. So my mom sat me down at the kitchen table, pulled out her old college dictionary, and helped me write the whole thing. That one day made homework much less scary for me. When I couldn't find a summer job, she had the idea to put an ad in the paper for me to do landscaping. She helped me get a job with huge lawnmowers, even though she really didn't want me to cut the grass at home because she was worried about me using the mower at home. She encouraged me in music, even though we had a difference of opinion on which instrument I'd play. She wanted the clarinet, but she relented and let me play the trumpet and still got me the lessons. For college, Mom was the one who followed up with school after the financial aid letters came out. She got them to double it, enabling me to go to school further away, even though she wanted me to stay closer. In grad school, she applied the constant but loving pressure. Every time we talked, she would always ask, "When are you graduating? And do you have a girlfriend?" After I graduated, she focused on the girlfriend, constantly encouraging me to look online, which I did, but I would never admit to her. Of course, I met my wonderful wife online. In summary, my mom did so much for me and others around her. This was her way of showing love. I'll forever be grateful for the things that she did, and I always loved her so much, and I'll miss her dearly.
And to all of those words spoken as a prayer, let us say Amen. That way you don't have to turn around the whole side. So we are gathered this morning to fulfill our solemn obligation of paying our respects to the memory of the dearly departed Tina Starman, and her Hebrew name, her Yiddish name was Tema. Tema in Yiddish is Tamar in Hebrew. Tamar means a date palm tree. A date palm tree stands upright and tall. Doesn't necessarily have to be really tall, but it stands up straight, which indicates somebody who stands up straight and is righteous and is honest. And this was your dear wife and sister and mother and grandma. She was a person who was righteous. She graced this earth for 77 years. She was very kind. As her siblings Bob and Linda said, Brother Bob said she'd give you the shirt off her back. She was sincerely a good person. She helped our mom and dad with whatever they needed. And her sister Linda, last night as we talked, Linda was like, I'm just in the gas station getting gas. I'm about to drive up from Columbus. So as she was about to get gas in her car, Linda said, I loved her very much, and I will miss her. She was a very kind soul. She was soft-spoken, and she was very persistent. She never gave up. And she was very smart. And as her husband Bob and children Nicole and Jared spoke of her, and her early years as a home ec teacher, and her skills sewing and cooking, as you heard again, even her gourmet cooking, there's a powerful Bible teaching from the beginning of the book of Exodus which came to mind. If you take a look at the beginning of Sefer Shemot, the beginning of the book of Exodus, you'll see women who work with their hands to nourish and sustain others. Just like Tina, who used her hands to nourish and sustain others, and to nourish and sustain you. Here are three things which occurred just before the Hebrews, our ancestors, became slaves in Egypt. Number one, in the beginning of the book of Exodus, the Pharaoh commanded the Hebrew midwives, Shiphrah and Puah, when you deliver the Hebrew woman, look at the birth stool. If it's a boy, kill it. If it's a girl, let her live. However, the Hebrew midwives, Shiphrah and Puah, defied the Pharaoh's edict, and with their hands they saved the lives of those little baby boys. Second example of women with their hands, nourishing and sustaining. The birth of Moses. His mother Yocheved and his older sister Miriam carried him and nourished him and hid him and set him afloat in the Nile River in that basket with their hands. And then the third example, the hands of Pharaoh's daughter. She brought in that basket and she raised that boy to be a leader. She raised that child to be a leader. Those were spirited, determined, tenacious, loyal, focused, creative, intelligent, and stubborn, and loving women. And the same can be said of your dear mother, your dear wife, your dear sister, your dear Tina, your dear grandma. She used her hands to give you love, like her famous spaghetti. And she used her hands to eat the things that she loved. The tie has pizza on it, only because I don't have a tie that has spaghetti on it. But her famous spaghetti, I was told, was really delicious. Delish. Tina, is it Weisberg or Weisberg? Weisberg. She was born April 16th, 1946 here in Cleveland. Her parents of blessed memory, Max and Elizabeth. She was the middle child and is survived by her siblings Bob and Linda. She went to Cleveland Heights High School. She graduated in 1964. And in 1972, she was a home ec teacher in Bedford. when, in April 1972, Bob Starman's Aunt Sarah introduced Tina and Bob. It was a match, and Tina couldn't wait to get married. So 8 months later, Tina and Bob were married at Fairmount Temple by Rabbi Arthur Lelyveld. That was December 24th, 1972. They shared a loving and devoted marriage of more than 50 years, and they were blessed with family. I'll mention all the names. If I make a mistake, call out and correct it, okay? Because it's got to be correct. Yeah, right. Nicole's like, oh, you bet. Of course. Here we go. Nicole, her husband John, and grandchildren, Emma, Julia, and Josephine. And Josephine just became bat mitzvah, and Grandma got to see it live stream all the way down there in Texas. And son Jared and his wife Kelly, and the boys, Elliot and Andrew. We also want to make special mention of Bob's sister Enid, and we want to make special mention of Aunt Sarah Ledsky, because, you know, Sarah's the reason here in a lot of ways. So Tina was a stay-at-home mom until the kids were old enough to be able to come home from school responsibly. And then she worked for the Department of Health, WIC, you know, Women, Infants, Children program here in Geauga County. She was sweet and she was thoughtful. She was loyal and she was tenacious. She was stubborn and she was very focused. We talked about this at the condolence call. To say somebody is stubborn, if the person is stubbornly in love with you, that stubbornness is great. So for all of us, we have our attributes. We have our attributes, and she was very, very focused and very, very loyal and tenacious. She was kind and sweet, and she was a great cook. As you heard about that too in the jello molds. Nikki said that when Mom came down to visit us, we sewed together and we made clothes. And we followed gourmet cooking recipes because those things were deep inside her and her memories. She could follow those very complicated recipes. Jared added that on Saturday nights when we were young, we almost always went out to dinner and a movie. That was their night, Saturday night. In December, 4 years ago, I think 2019, she was diagnosed with cancer, and it's been a 4-year struggle almost. It's been a very difficult time. But she was tenacious, and she fought hard. On May 29th in the morning, on Memorial Day, she breathed her last. Now Tina is at peace. Now there is just rest and wholeness and peace, just as Shabbat, just as the Sabbath day is a time of rest and wholeness and peace, so for Tina it is a time of rest and peace. Her soul is returning to God and to be with the souls of her dear relatives and friends and ancestors of our people. We learn this in Ecclesiastes, the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 12, verse 7. The dust returns to the earth as it was. The spirit returns to God who gave it. The remains, the body, will be placed in the ground. Her soul is returning to God. One day, all of us will join her in Olam Haba. Olam Haba is the world to come. It's a spiritual existence. It's not a physical place. It's eternal time. And one day our souls will be together with her again. We're sending along an old prayer book and a Passover Haggadah with her in the casket, because it's a mitzvah, of course, to escort the body of your loved one to its final resting place. And it's a mitzvah. It's a religious obligation to provide a respectful burial for holy books and ritual objects of our heritage. We sent along a Passover Haggadah in particular because Passover is the time that we recall and we give thanks for our ancient liberation from Egyptian slavery. And we are free today because of God's deliverance those many, many years ago. And Tina has been liberated from any illness or pain. Your memories are filled to overflowing, and we give thanks to God for this gift of life. 77 years, and as we think of 77, we think it's not that many years. If you're young, you think it's a lot of years, but as you get older, it's not that many. At the same time, even though we wanted more time with her, we would want that time to be in health, so that she could enjoy the time with us, and we can enjoy that time with her. So even in our sadness, we're grateful for the time that we were blessed with. And as you think of her, have a good laugh. Maybe learn how to make some good spaghetti. Maybe learn how to do a little bit of sewing. What a skill that is. It's so beautiful. Be helpful and be kind. Be tenacious. Fight for the people that you in your family need you to support them. Take good care of them. Be loyal. And let us do all of these things in her loving memory. For only through the deeds which we perform can the world be compensated for her loss. And so we conclude with tears in our eyes, with words from the first chapter of the book of Job. Adonai Natan, v'Adonai Lakach, Yehi Shem Adonai Mevarach. The Lord hath given, the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And let us say, Amen. Ose shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru yimru amen. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, Ya'aseh shalom, Ya'aseh shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. May God, who causes peace to reign in the high heavens, cause peace to rain down upon us, upon all Israel, and let us say, Amen. And from Psalm 90. O God, you have been our refuge in every generation. Before the mountains came into being, before you brought forth the earth and the world, from eternity to eternity you are God. You return us to dust. You decree, return you mortals. For in your sight 1,000 years are as yesterday when it has passed, or as a watch in the night. You engulf us in sleep. We are like grass that renews itself. At daybreak it flourishes anew. At dusk it withers and dries up. The span of our life is 80 years and 10, or given strength 80 years. But the best of those years have trouble and sorrow. They pass by speedily, and we are in darkness. Teach us, therefore, so to number our days, that we may attain a heart of wisdom. Turn to us, O God. Show mercy to your servants. Satisfy us at daybreak with your steadfast love, that we may sing for joy all our days. Let your deeds be seen by your servants, your glory by your children. May your favor, O God, be upon us. Establish the work of our hands, that it may long endure. Please rise for the El Malei Rachamim prayer. El male rachamim, shochen bamromim, hametzeh menucha nechona, tachat kanfei hashchina, im kedoshim u'tohorim, kizohar ki amazirim, et nishmat Tema bat Moshe, שהלכה לעולמה, בעל הרחמים, יסיריה בסתר כנפיו לעולמים. ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה, אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to our dear Tama, Tina Starman. She has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in the shadow of your wings, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. And together, let us recite the Kaddish prayer. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, ba'alma divrach cherutei v'yamalich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayerecho beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'v'yizman kari v'yimiru Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lamei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei d'kudusha barichu, le'elam min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechmata, Gamiran ba'alma v'iru Amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shmaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imiru Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imiru Amen. May God grant peace to those who mourn and comfort all who are bereaved among us, and let us say, Amen. We now will toss some flowers on top of the casket. I'll toss a little bit of earth, but the rest of us who wish to shovel will do after the family leaves. That's their request. So if you want to come forward and toss some flowers. Lech ki shilachcha Adonai, go your way, for the Lord has called you. Lech v'Adonai ya'imach, go your way, and may God be with you. V'halach lipanecha tzidkecha, kavod Adonai yasvecha. May your righteousness go before you, and may the glory of God receive you. Would everyone who is here not wearing a ribbon, please repeat these words after me, speaking them to the mourners. May God console you with all who mourn in Zion and Jerusalem. Hamakom yinachem etchem b'toch shavet Zion v'Yerushalayim. Now let us go forth in peace to life. We will recite Kaddish for Tina for the next 30 days at Temple Israel Ner Tamid. Our Friday night services are at 7:30. We'll recite Kaddish for her whether any family members are in attendance or not. It'll be our privilege to do so. The family everyone is invited to come over to Guido's restaurant, which is, I'll give you they'll be there until 2 o'clock, 12809 Chillicothe Road in Chesterland, 12809. And gather for a meal of consolation and condolence. And this concludes our service here.